So this presentation is very generic. So if you're already familiar with the Jupyter Notebook, and please just please enjoy this presentation for sake of other people who are not familiar with. And we assume that everybody understands the Python in this workshop. So we are not going to get into the Python language, but we learned that Jupyter Notebook may be useful information to present with you that you understand. That's a very useful information. So definition of Jupyter Notebook. You haven't heard about Jupyter Notebook. It's a notebook or online document that integrates a code and also output in a single document that combines the visualization and narrative text, mathematical equation, other rich media. So you can also able to run actual code snippets and also display the output right away after you run the code. And also you can add explanation and formula and chart, and also your work more transparent, understandable, repeatable, and shareable. So idea behind the Jupyter Notebook is people want to share their research as a paper, but they want to include all those their algorithm and code with a paper. So that's the basically idea. So they provide a scientific paper at the same time reproducible code with the paper. So that's the purpose of Jupyter Notebook. The notebook idea is coming from the lab notebook. As you know, if you had experienced anything in the laboratory, whenever you do the experiment, they actually write the notebook about what kind of lab experiment you do. So that's the kind of the history behind why they call the notebook here. So having said that, in order to run the Jupyter Notebook, there's a several way you could do. You can actually launch the Jupyter Notebook as a user interface. But what we're going to use today is a Jupyter Lab. So Jupyter Lab is a next generation notebook interface, which means that it's a web application or a web-based interactive development environment that you are able to use a notebook, but not just a notebook anymore. You can also use the other data files that Jupyter Lab is provided you. So Incore Lab is a rebranding of Jupyter Lab, which we added some customized features within the Jupyter Lab, which mostly is some of the menu to our documentation and also menu to link to the web tools. So you can launch your documentation within the Jupyter Lab and you can interact with it and things like that. So after that presentation, I'm giving you a demo. So don't be, you can wait a little bit and I can explain. Some of the important user interface I'm going to explain quickly. So when you launch Jupyter Lab and open the Jupyter Notebook file, you're going to see this kind of interface right here. So there's some of the buttons you're going to see later on. So this one is a save notebook whenever you changes it. And the plus sign is you can insert a new cell. I'm going to explain what the cell is in the next slide. And you can also, this button is when you select the cell, you can cut. It's a cut and paste kind of thing. And cut the select cell. Next one obviously looks like a copy the cell to the below where you selected. Copy the cell you selected. And then this is a paste. You can able to cut and paste your code or cells within the notebook. And also this button is run your selected cells. And also this is when you run, sometimes the code runs really long or is there any problems so that it causes a delay. You can click this button, it actually stops and then interrupt the kernel or interrupt the runs. And you can restart everything so that you can remove or you can entirely, restart your notebook again. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, it says that the cell could have the code or documentation and chart and equations. That's what it is. So this cell, you can change that to type of the cell. So it can be a code. Markdown is a language that shows the different font size and all those things. Or you can put some raw code and raw text information there too. So briefly mention the user interface. Now, you're going to see is this file, IPYNB file. It's IPython notebook file. So this is actually a Jupyter notebook file you interact with. So this Jupyter notebook IPyNB file is one notebook represent. You can open this Jupyter notebook file, then you can run and edit and save the cells. Or you can open the existing one files, or you can create a new one within the interface. So I'm going to show you the demo about how to create these things. So Having said that, also when you open the Jupyter Notebook at first time or the existing one, you're going to see this kind of window right here. Looks like a one-liner with a text box and blinking, but Jupyter Notebook is called the cells. So this cell can be a code if you type in the Python code, and then, or if you change the type to the markdown, and then it becomes the documentation. You can put some text to different headings, italic or bold. You can make those things. And then this is a button I mentioned. You can type the code and then run button, and it execute your Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook. So I can pick one picture is better than 1,000 words. So I'm gonna switch to my window to show you. So let me quickly start from the beginning here. So when you join to the Incore page, your incore.ncsillinois.edu, after you log in, like I said, you have the login. Then you will see the menu on top of your Incore Lab. If you click on it, and then it'll launch the Incore Lab environment for you. So this is what you're going to do today. So please watch it a little bit carefully. I'm going to do another demo next time. But so when you're launching it, usually this is how it looks like. You have a launcher, which is you can create Jupyter Notebook file, or if you want to, you can actually do just a Python, which is not a notebook, but you typical Python. And there's many other things you can launch it here. And then you can see some menus. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just launch it so that create the empty Jupyter Notebook here. So this is just a Jupyter Notebook, is very empty. Now you're able to see this toolbar menu. I'll show you in the presentation. So this save, insert, if you click this one, you can insert new cell, you see that? Or you click on it, you can click this, is a cut, and then you can paste it. Copy is a very typical way. Now, if I type the code here, print, and then after you type it, you click this button, and you can see that it executes like this. So, or if you want to do print, and then what it does is basically you 1 + 1, and then turn into a string and then print. So you can see that after I do that or Control Enter, it actually executes. So, and this one is + is a stop when it's really long, a code is running, or you can restart. So for example, now this is called the input cell, and this is output cell. And if you want to, you can delete the output cells. So go to the kernel and then clear all the outputs. And what it does is it restarts your notebook, and then you delete all the cells. So now you're able to restart the code again. Now, another one is now code is now turn into the markdown. So you see that now I can type it here. So markdown is this syntax. You can search on the, Google. There's a lot of the markdown, the syntax. After that, you execute. You can see that it shows different heading style and make a bold, italic. You could change that. I believe that you can also insert the equation here, and you can insert the images here, and then the markdown cells. So you can do that to handling this Jupyter Notebook. So this is just a very quick way to do. One thing people does is if you create another one, then you can move to side window here. So you can have the side by side. So the good thing about Jupyter Lab is you can have a multiple window open up. You can handle some of the information like that and compares and things much easier than before. Okay, if you have any question, please leave on the chat.